Hello, welcome to Tammy DeCaro Art. So this month we were challenged by Nate Bright to take a technique that we are familiar and comfortable with and change one thing. And I did not get my video done in time for the collaboration, but I wanted to post it anyway. So what I did was I took a blowout technique, or some people call it a Dutch pour technique, which is normally done with paint. And I tested to see if I could do it with resin. So this is a Lazy Susan. I coated it with a base coat of resin and let that cure. And then I came in with a clear coat of resin to put my colors and use my blower to blow out those colors. And part of our challenge was to evaluate, did our experiment work? What would you change or do differently next time? And I will share those details with you. If you missed the collaboration, it aired on Sunday, February 16th. On Nate Bright's channel, you can see the whole playlist there of all the artists and the experiments that they did. Our team did a fantastic job. I was just super late getting my video ready, and I wasn't able to join the collaboration. So I started out my blowout with white Alumilite resin dye in the center, and then I used some contrasting colors, Wild Atlantic, by this Little Piggy Pigments. This is Sea Mist, Sea Glass. Not sure what the name is. And I used some Hammerhead, and then I also mixed that with Tail Feather. So Hammerhead and Tail Feather together for that last color. And this color was my base color, which was a mix of some Payne's Gray paint and I think it was Benevolence. No, it was just Payne's Gray paint with resin. So hindsight's 2020, of course. I added the white in a larger area than just the center. I think that helped with producing cells. What's interesting to me is that this Alumilite dye is usually what I use to create my beach waves, but I didn't heat this up with a heat gun. I'm just using a hairdryer, which is blowing on a hot setting, but certainly not nearly as hot as a heat gun would be. If I were to repeat this test, I would do it with a heat gun instead. I was worried that the prolonged blowing to try to get those colors to move out to the edge would burn the resin, so that's why I used a hairdryer. And if you've never used a hairdryer on resin, especially this resin is so thick that it takes a bit to get it to get out to the edges. And I knew that that would be the case, so that's why I didn't use the heat gun. I may test it with the heat gun instead. Maybe the resin will get hotter and flow better. If I were going to do this test again, I would use different colors, maybe more contrasting colors. I think it's difficult to tell whether or not the experiment was a success with colors that are so similar in terms of their position on the color wheel and being predominantly, greens, teals. They're going to mix well together Anyway, a really good test of this would be to do something with a very complementary color palette, but a wide contrast. For instance, purple and yellow. See what you get, or red and green. Because then if you're going to make mud with this technique, you would see it right away with those colors over mixing. The interesting thing about blowing out resin is it does, because it's on a clear coat, it's not mixing with the undercoat at all. So that clear coat allows that base coat to shine through. And I have actually done fluid art blowouts with a clear coat made from Floetrol and gel gloss and had great success with that. So, that is a viable option to use that clear base coat as a way to do a blowout without over mixing your colors. But I was just curious whether or not the higher viscosity of the resin would allow a blowout. Now, interestingly enough, this is super thick, but you don't see the defined petals, the defined color mixing that you see in paint. So, it's a more subtle effect. I took my skewer and came in with some separation to try to achieve that petal separation. But resin being resin, it's moving quickly to fill in the gap, and I'm just not sure that this is the best way to create a blowout look. It's certainly not as defined as you would see in a fluid art piece, but it was fun. I had this Lazy Susan in my booth at the Fort Myers Art Festival and had multiple people comment on it and the colors that were used. I had one customer say it kind of looked like a comet or something, outer space, which is a pretty interesting take on that. I do kind of define the center a little bit more, and that seemed to help with the composition. Up close, it's beautiful to see those sea glass colors and wild Atlantic over the top of that darker base. It's difficult to see that detail here. And at the end, I do show you a dry, finished photograph of this piece. This was an interesting experiment, and I think it's a great challenge to take one technique and change just one thing about that and test it and see if that works. If you decide to do a challenge like this, let me know. I'd love to see your creation video. And in the meantime, hopefully, if you're not already subscribed, you've pushed that subscribe button by now. And like and comment and let me know what you think about this. Was it successful, or would you like to see it tested in a different way? You never know. I might just pick that as another video to do. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon here on Tammy DeCaro Art. Have a great day.